as the man in issue is their father. You may recognize my ex-husband, or as I like to call him, my baby daddy. What if I told you that one of the wealthiest men in the world had a marriage so shattered that his wife received a text message informing her of their divorce? 1,995 students attended Queen University in Ontario in that year. Their paths first intersected in Canada. Then there was Justine Wilson, an English literature major and aspiring novelist who believed in the depth of human connection and the power of emotion. Elon Musk, a quiet but incredibly ambitious physics and economics major, was known for thinking bigger than anyone else in the room. He wasn't like the other students, not only aiming for a stable career, a house, or a comfortable future. There were no fireworks or love at first sight during their first encounter, it was just a straightforward invitation. She declined Elon Musk's invitation to go out for ice cream, but he wasn't wired that way and instead showed up at her dorm room later, standing there with 2 melting ice cream cones, unwilling to let her go so easily. For Justine, this was charming, possibly even flattering, because he was a man who was not only ambitious but also in love, a man who would pursue what he wanted no matter what. At the time, she took it as a sign of devotion, but she didn't realize that this wasn't just persistence, rather, it was a glimpse of something much deeper that would soon define their entire relationship. Elon's intelligence and unwavering resolve enthralled Justine. He talked about the future as though it were something he could control and, in some respects, as though he could control his ideas and his refusal to be normal. It was intoxicating, but there was also something icy about it. While Justine flourished in emotion, passion, and creativity, Elon's approach to interaction was almost mechanical. He was bright, but he saw the world through efficiency, logic, and numbers, leaving little room for emotion. She was drawn to literature because she understood the depth of emotion that words could evoke, but he was drawn to power over business and the future. As she would later learn, the people closest to him drifted apart for a while, but fate or perhaps Elon's inability to let go brought them back together. By that time, everything had changed. Elon had moved to Silicon Valley and his business endeavors were starting to take off. His first significant startup had made him famous, and PayPal, the company that would eventually make him a millionaire, was on the horizon. He was no longer just another driven college student, but a rising force. This time, when Elon wanted Justine, he got her. Their love story resumed, but something had changed, the power dynamic had changed, and Elon wasn't the same person he had been in college, he was more calculating and sharper now. When Justine Musk married Elon in 2000, she thought she was entering a partnership, a union of equals. Based on shared ambition and respect, but what she didn't realize was that in Elon's world, there was no room for equality, there was only structure, hierarchy, and efficiency. From the outside, they had everything, a young, brilliant entrepreneur on the rise with a wife who supported his vision and a future that seemed limitless, but behind closed doors, the reality was different. Justine saw brief moments of affection, but there was always a need for control, a demand for obedience, and a quiet, unshakable belief that his way was the only way. Elon didn't view marriage as other people did. To him, relationships were about structure, order, and control rather than compromise, feelings, or shared dreams. He saw marriage as something that should be simplified, handled with brutal precision, and maximized, just like business. Justine soon came to understand that she was more than just Elon Musk's wife, she was an extension of his empire, meant to fit into the meticulously planned framework of his existence. He had expectations and standards for their marriage that allowed little space for her individuality. Elon made it apparent that this was his world and that there was no place for rebellion when she attempted to assert herself and make her own space. During a disagreement, he once looked her in the eyes and said, "If you were my employee, I would fire you." It wasn't just a cruel statement, it was a factual statement that, in Elon's mind, efficiency was more important than anything else, even in marriage. Justine wasn't his partner, rather, she had to change to fit in with his expectations. She initially dismissed it, thinking it might have been a casual remark or that he hadn't meant it the way it sounded, but as time passed, the patterns became unavoidable. Elon was relentless in his business and equally relentless in his marriage, expecting complete dedication, absolute discipline, and unwavering loyalty. He wasn't interested in depth or personal growth, but rather in results, and Justine was expected to deliver. If she questioned him, he shut her down; if she expressed frustration, he dismissed it; if she wanted to be seen as his equal, she was reminded repeatedly that there was no equality in his world. Justine felt herself fading, a tragic event that should have brought them closer together, but instead drove them farther apart. They had it all: money, a growing family, and a growing family, but in just 10 weeks, everything fell apart. After years of feeling like an accessory to Elon's world, Justine Musk cradled her newborn boy Nevada Alexander in her arms, feeling that life had finally given her the bliss she had long desired. This was something she could claim as her own moment. For a brief period, everything appeared perfect: their home, marriage, and future, untouched by ambition and a love too pure to be quantified in terms of efficiency or numbers. However, perfection is brittle, and occasionally it disappears before you even recognize it existed. Justine's world abruptly stopped when she went to check on Nevada one morning because he wasn't breathing and had sudden infant death syndrome. Her grief was so overwhelming that it felt like she had been torn apart from the inside out. She needed to cry and talk to process the unfathomable loss that had just ripped her life apart, but Elon didn't do either of those things. He didn't grieve, he didn't talk, and he didn't cry in a way that Justine could comprehend. He did what he always did, moving forward with work projects and the future, because there was no point in drowning in emotions and lingering on pain that wasn't going to bring Nevada back. However, Justine couldn't just move on; she needed to remember that she needed to hold on to the pain because, to her, forgetting meant losing Nevada all over again. One night, she broke down because she needed to hear Elon say their son's name to acknowledge the gravity of what had happened, and he only said, "I don't want to talk about it." Elon set up a space where she wanted to see him and he wanted to remove it. They were still husband and wife and still shared a home, but something had changed that could not be undone. By 2008, Justine Musk could see that her marriage was failing, but she wasn't prepared to give up. She still wanted to keep their marriage together until a single event altered everything. Imagine waking up one morning to get a text that completely alters your life. Thread by thread, the indications, which included cold transactional discussions and emotional distancing, had been present for years. Because of the way Elon's world continued to grow while hers continued to contract, she was no longer his partner or equal. Instead, she was a constant in his life and was supposed to stay out of the spotlight while he established his empire. Elon's focus was on everything but his marriage, including Tesla, SpaceX, Solar City, pushing the boundaries of technology, reshaping industries, and controlling the future. He was rarely at home, and when he was a man in motion, too fast for love and too patient for anything that wasn't directly advancing his ambitions. Justine knew deep down that she was on the verge of something irrevocable, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. It wasn't a conversation, it wasn't a slow, painful realization, it wasn't even a fight, it was a text message. Justine had tried to hold on, to adapt, to make herself into the person he wanted, but every attempt only made her feel smaller and more invisible. 3 words that made it apparent she hadn't lost her husband but had already been replaced: "I'm engaged." This was a straightforward, dispassionate text from the guy she had spent over 10 years establishing a life with, and it destroyed whatever was left of their marriage. The way he delivered them was just as betraying as the words themselves. A statement rather than a conversation. She sat there staring at the computer, unable to comprehend the finality of it, as though she were a loose end that needed to be tied up rather than a person who deserved an explanation. The realization that she was no longer a part of his future struck like a blade when she realized that the man she had loved and formed a family with had moved on without even exchanging words. She had been raised in AR, abandoned, and outpaced by the same unrelenting momentum that had made him a billionaire, but Elon's departure wasn't the most agonizing part. What followed next was even more shocking. She thought she was married to a partner. Instead, she realized she had signed away her future in the early years before the world knew Elon Musk as a billionaire. Before Tesla and SpaceX became forces of nature, he was just another ambitious entrepreneur with a vision. Money was tight, risks were high, and Justine, she was there through it all, supporting him, believing in him, and standing by his side. It was during those early days that Elon approached her with a simple request, a postnuptial agreement. He assured her it was just a formality, a precaution, something that wouldn't matter because they would never separate, and why would she question it? She wasn't marrying him for his money. Back then he wasn't the world's wealthiest man, he was still a dreamer in the trenches, building his empire from the ground up. She trusted him, so she signed it without hesitation, without fully understanding what it would mean if one day he decided she was no longer part of his life. Years passed, and then everything changed. The text message, the cold, calculated way he ended their marriage, and in that moment Justine finally understood this wasn't a partnership. It never had been. It wasn't until the divorce proceedings began that she saw the full extent of what she had signed away. The postnuptial agreement left her with far less than she expected, much less than what she thought she had earned after spending years with him. Elon's fortune had skyrocketed, and PayPal had been sold. With Tesla thriving and SpaceX defying gravity, Justine was left fighting for what was legally hers. She took it to court, arguing that the agreement was invalid and that it had been signed under false pretenses, that she hadn't been given the full picture of Elon's future fortune when she put her trust in him. But Elon didn't back down, he never did, and his legal team was merciless. The contract was ironclad. He had built an empire that defied every limit, and now he was making sure his ex-wife wouldn't see more than the bare minimum of it. The postnuptial arrangement was finalized. If Elon thought Justine would quietly vanish, he was mistaken, because she was going to make sure the world knew her side of the story. Most billionaire Justine was left with only a small portion of what she felt was rightfully hers, a small portion of the life she had built with him, and a small portion of the fortune she had helped him create. Fading ex-wives. The world saw Elon Musk as a genius, a disruptor, a man who was reshaping the future, but Justine knew the version of him that wasn't in the headlines, the man who built rockets and electric cars but couldn't build a healthy relationship. Into the background, Justine did the exact opposite. For years, she had been silent, trapped in a marriage where her voice had been gradually erased, where her opinions had been dismissed, and where her identity had slowly dissolved into the shadow of one of the most powerful men in the world. She gave a shocking, unvarnished portrayal of what it was like to be married to Elon Musk in her essay that was published in March. She didn't hold back. Instead, she revealed the emotional neglect, the control, and the oppressive power imbalance that transformed a love story into a dictatorship. She explained how, over the years, she had felt like she had vanished, going from being Justine Musk and an ambitious writer with her own dreams to simply being Elon Musk's wife and a supporting character in a story where she had once thought of herself as an equal partner. She revealed how he controlled their finances, how every important decision was made without her input, and how he had dictated not only their marriage but the very structure of their lives. He had the money, the power, and the final say, and she was expected to follow his lead. However, what shocked readers the most was not just the revelations about Elon's character, it was the realization of how cold and heartless he had been throughout their marriage. Instead of seeking retribution or being resentful, Justine was just speaking the truth, and that fact revealed a guy who was feared for his relentless coldness yet admired for his brilliance. The world read her words, and for the first time the narrative around Elon Musk shifted. But if anyone thought this was the end of the story, they were wrong, because Elon Musk wasn't done with marriage. He was about to enter another whirlwind relationship. Just weeks after his divorce, Elon was already in a new relationship with someone 14 years younger. Tula Riley wasn't Justine. She hadn't been there for the early struggles, the sleepless nights of uncertainty, and the years of sacrifice before Tesla and SpaceX became global giants. No, when Tula met Elon, he was already a billionaire, already a man who had defied the odds, conquered industries, and solidified his place as one of the most powerful figures in the world. She was young, beautiful, an actress with a promising career, and unlike Justine, she had never seen the version of Elon who was still claying his way to the top. She only knew the man who had already arrived. Their meeting wasn't in a boardroom or at a tech conference, it was in a London nightclub, an unlikely place for a man as analytical as calculated. And as intensely driven as Elon Musk. But that night, something clicked, and just like everything in his life, once he made up his mind there was no hesitation. Tula was swept into his orbit. It wasn't just romance, it was a whirlwind. When Tula entered his world, she wasn't just his wife, she was expected to adjust to his universe, his schedule, his way of life, and his obsession with Tesla and SpaceX. Elon didn't date slowly, he didn't love cautiously, and he pursued relationships the same way he pursued innovation, relentlessly, without second-guessing. If Tallulah thought she was entering a fairy tale, she was mistaken. Elon's work consumed him, and his need for control over every aspect of his world extended into his personal life. His first marriage was beginning to fall apart due to his incapacity or unwillingness to put his marriage before his mission. 2 years after they said, "I do," he made another decision that was just as cold and calculating as the text he had sent to Justine in 2012, he filed for divorce. No protracted arguments or explosive scandals. It was puzzling to the outside world why he would go back and repeat history, but to those who knew Elon, it made perfect sense, because he wasn't the type of man who let go easily or accept failure. But what happened next was even stranger. Less than 18 months later, he remarried the same woman he had divorced, the same relationship that had already failed once. Justine was only the beginning, and every subsequent relationship appeared to follow the same pattern. When the second marriage failed, much like the first. After his second divorce from Tallulah Riley, Elon Musk didn't linger in the past when something went wrong. Instead, he moved on quickly. It didn't take long for another woman to enter his life, but this time it wasn't a quiet, behind-the-scenes relationship. Instead, it was with one of the most controversial people in Hollywood, Amber Heard. Their relationship was a spectacle from the beginning. Long before they went public, there had been rumors of their relationship. Elon allegedly pursued Amber for years while she was still married to Johnny Depp, and when her well-publicized, tumultuous divorce from Depp finally came to a conclusion, Elon saw his opportunity. Heard was no stranger to drama, and being with Elon didn't change that. Their romance was full of extravagant vacations, public demonstrations of adoration, and emotional intensity, but behind the scenes, it was a different story. Disagreements, splits, and reconciliations. The cycle continued until it was no longer possible, and by 2018, their relationship had completely collapsed. Elon was alone once more, but not for long. If Amber had stood for anarchy, his next relationship would have been quite different. Grimes represented something completely different. She was not only an artist but also a representation of futurism, eccentricity, and the kind of radical thinking that Elon found fascinating. Their relationship began in an unusual way, not through mutual friends or business, with a funny joke about artificial intelligence that sparked a conversation and eventually something more. Grimes wasn't just another Hollywood star, she was erratic, unearthly, and an artist with a completely unique perspective on the world. For a while, it worked because she pushed Elon in ways that others hadn't, and she accepted his fixation with the future when they had their son, XAEA2. The world hardly knew how to respond, but like with all relationships before rifts appeared, disagreements arose, and eventually the inevitable occurred. One more separation, another chapter came to an end, but this time there was a twist. In 2022, shocking news broke that Elon Musk had secretly fathered twins with Siobhan Zis, an executive at Neuralink, one of his own companies. No one had anticipated this. There had been no public indication of their relationship, no rumors, no speculation, but it was undeniable that his pattern wasn't simply repeating itself, it was changing. Elon Musk's relationships always ended the same way, passionately, with grand gestures that gave the impression that something would last, followed by distance, control, and detachment. However, Justine discovered something that Elon Musk was never able to: peace and independence. Justine's divorce made her stronger than ever. For years she had lived in Elon Musk's orbit, her identity shaped by his ambitions, her life dictated by his vision. She had watched as her marriage unraveled, as the man she once loved became a stranger, as the world celebrated him while she quietly faded into the background. But that was over now. Elon had moved on again and again, but Justine, she had no desire to repeat the same mistakes. She had already spent years trying to fit into someone. Elsa's world now. It was time to build her own. She turned to what had always been her passion, writing, but this time it wasn't just fiction, it was her own story, raw and unfiltered. She wasn't afraid to speak the truth, to expose the realities of being married to a man like Elon Musk, and in doing so she found her purpose not just as a writer but as an advocate. She began speaking out, using her platform to empower women, particularly those who like her had found themselves trapped in marriages where they felt unseen, unheard, and controlled. She didn't want sympathy, she wanted change, but despite everything she never let bitterness consume her. She didn't seek revenge, she didn't engage in public feuds or endless battles over the past, because for Justine the past no longer held power over her. She and Elon still had one undeniable connection: their children, and for their sake, they maintained a co-parenting relationship. They didn't speak directly, but they made it work. The man who had once dismissed her as an afterthought was now simply a presence in the background of her life, no longer a force she had to reckon with. Today Justine resides in Los Angeles, a long way from the turmoil of Elon's ever-changing relationships, business empires, and she has found what he never could: peace, stability, and a life that isn't governed by the next big invention or billion-dollar discovery. In her own words, she isn't bitter, rather, she is thankful for the lessons she learned, the strength she didn't know she had, and the freedom she now enjoys. Even though Elon Musk has transformed industries and constructed rockets, he still hasn't found love. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos in the future.